Hello, everybody. This is Design Charcha with Pouya Jahanshahi. So Design Charcha is a biannual conversation series hosted by SADEA, that's South Asian Design Educators Alliance, in the months of January and August. Charcha translates as discussion, argument, debate, a juicy rumor, or a discourse in a few South Asian languages. In this discussion series, Sadeya invites people beyond the South Asian diaspora as an attempt to bridge the gap between transcontinental perspectives and research. Design Charcha manifests in the form of open conversations, presentations, collaborations, or dialogues. Treating graphic design as an open sky, Sadeya invites professionals from diverse disciplines, designers, filmmakers, artists, educators, animators, and cultural and creative workers from around the globe to share a similar sky. So I'm Archana Shekhara. I'm the current chair and founder of Sadeya. So we have Professor Pouya Jahanshahi as our guest today, who will be sharing his research and teaching initiatives, project collaborations globally. So I have the pleasure to introduce Professor Jahanshahi. So Pouya Jahanshahi is an Iranian-born graphic designer and curator. Currently, he's an associate professor of graphic design at Oklahoma State University and the director of MFA program and holds an endowed professorship at the School of Global Studies. He received his MFA in graphic design and integrated media from the California Institute of Arts, that's CalArts, where he researched the global development of what he has termed hybrid visual cultures. Focusing on post-revolutionary and hybrid characteristics of Iranian typography, he has been the voice of Iranian graphic design in Western academia. He has presented on such related issues internationally in venues including ATypI, Iranian Graphic Design Society, Encuentro de Typografía, that's in Spain, I'm assuming, Pouya, am I right?
That one I think is in Portugal.
It's in Portugal,
Yeah.
and College Arts Association, among others. He is the co-founder of Passage Collaborative and local non-local art and design collaboratives, and his 2020 posters for Peace collection is currently being exhibited internationally. So Pouya, we welcome you. Thank you so much for joining our Design Charcha today. So, and you can share.
All right, thank you, Archana. Good seeing you again, and thank you for the invite for the CHARCHA. Am I saying that right? CHARCHA?
Yes, you are. CHARCHA.
CHARCHA, great. Sounds great. Yeah, definitely does sounds like that kind of a. It's CHARCHA. It's like something's happening there, like it's active.
Yes, you're right. You're right. The rolling of the tongue.
Yes. I know we had talked before that your second guest and your first guest was Louise Sandhouse, which was one of my instructors at CalArts. So I'm happy to be following kind of her presentation, which is going to be, of course, something tough to even compare to, but I'll do kind of my version. So great. All right, I'm just going to jump into my kind of presentation mode, and we can chit chat during and after. Let's see. Should I share my screen?
Yes, please go ahead, Pouya.
Okay. So yeah, I stole the kind of horizontal graphic you guys had made because it was so great, and I love all the nuances of this Sadeya kind of display framework. So okay, so I'm an associate professor of graphic design at Oklahoma State University, and happy to be invited to the second CHARCHA. So this is just a little kind of a very abbreviated version of some of the work I do, and maybe put in form of a narrative story. I was born a long time ago across the world, far away, kind of like the first episode of Star Wars, in Iran, and we know of Iran from many avenues nowadays, all the way from the from the Persian carpets that's somewhere close by is to you, and of course, turning on the news, sooner or later you'll hear something about Iran and what's happening in the Persian Gulf. So we have become much better known than when I came to the United States. People did not know much about Iran. For me, of all the things that we know about Persian and being from Iran, the poetry and also the calligraphy that communicated that poetry was very dear and visually kind of close to my heart when I was in Iran. Even as a child, it was kind of quite intriguing and interesting. And of course, being surrounded by stories and narratives from ancient myths and from the 1,000 years of Iranian history, and then some of them would be translated into our textbooks. So I was very well aware of being part of this ongoing continuum of history that at sometimes I feel like when I'm in the US, that kind of continuum of history is a little bit out of touch. So that's kind of definitely part of my upbringing and surrounding both the narratives and the forms. Everything kind of changed for me in 1977 when I got up one day as a child and I kind of saw masses of people, not this exact scene, but scenes similar to this, for people in the streets and with different images and writings in their hands, and of course asking my folks, seeing what is happening, and they said, well, there's people want somebody new to lead them, and they are upset about what's happening, and that's called a revolution. So it was the Iranian Revolution. Later on, became what we know as the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Soon after that, it was another adventure that was new to me, was being in the middle of a war. Iraq, our neighbor at the time, basically invaded Iran, thinking about that the havoc of revolution has made the Iranian kind of military weak, and they were right on that, and so they invaded Iran, and to see images of war and the news, as much as my parents tried to kind of protect me from hearing all these things and seeing images, I was aware that we are in a war, and it became real to me when there were airplanes that would fly over the Capitol, and there will be sirens, and we would have to run to the basement and wait until the kind of white siren at the time that had different tones. The red siren had a faster tone, kind of like an ambulance. The white siren was much more of a smoother tone that would say, now it's safe to come out. You can come out of your shelters. So it was real that we were in a war. So those definitely shaped my perspectives and understanding of the contrast in life that can happen in a very short period of time. This image or images similar to this also are something that were embedded in my visual memory, as I showed you the calligraphy and the poetry and the beginning. So here we're seeing kind of calligraphic writings of poetry and kind of Islamic prayers on the forehead of a teenage soldier. And there were a lot of that happening. There are masses of teenagers that were volunteered to go to war, and it was a very unfortunate and scary situation. Lots of ethical issues there, of course, but I could easily see myself that, oh, I could look like that if I put on that uniform and put that on my forehead. And it could have very much easily been the case if I had stayed in Iran longer than I stayed. So at age 13, my folks went to London for some work that they had to do, and I went with them. Thank God that happened. Very kind of a perfect timing in some ways. And while the war was going on, I was safe in London, of course, and they had to go back in 2 years. And unfortunately, the war was still going on. And I migrated to the United States. From there, I did not go back to Iran, because if I had, I would have been drafted as a soldier. And that kind of started my my start in the United States as a designer and researcher and kind of professor that I am. So kind of brief view of my design practice, I refer to it as a kind of hybrid visual language. The visual language part of it is, I guess you could think about it as graphic and graphic design, but the hybridity comes from me being from a different cultural background, both linguistically, visually, ethnically, and having been transplanted to a completely different realm, and how I mix those together, how I bring the whole spectrum of vocabulary from my original ethnicity of Iranian and Persian and calligraphy and ornaments to how those could function in the Western realm of Latin typography and graphic design. So here's some examples of that. This is actually one of my posters I did for my thesis at CalArts, which was reflecting what I was seeing in the diaspora communities of Iranians in Los Angeles, specifically sometimes referred to as Tehran Jealous, as a specific part of Los Angeles that Iranians have selected to live and start their businesses there. And when you walk there, you hear English being spoken and Persian being spoken, or at times sentences that mix and match Persian and English vocabulary together. You hear music that's Iranian, and then in the next shop it's very much American, and Iranians are shopping there, and then there's a cafe. So you feel the kind of presence of this hybrid generation there, and I wanted to translate that visually, and focusing on the typography of bringing the Latin type form to the kind of Perso-Arabic type form. And as I was putting this together, I realized they actually look like buildings. They're kind of the structures. And here I was experiencing a city and a part of a city that was where I was hearing these sounds. So I put it together in that form, and I couldn't help by bringing it together as under the frame of a Persian carpet, which is what we all are familiar with here and there. There's a kind of a mapping code on the left and right, so the ABCDs and 1, 2, 3s, both in Persian and Arabic to kind of communicate. Sorry, both in Persian and Latin to communicate the kind of the mapness about this. In the back, there's a map of Los Angeles, and so kind of just some of my other works that you can kind of see that same merger, same hybridity of East and West brought together. Most of my research at CalArts during my MFA was spent on this, on how can or even if a hybrid practice can be a reality. Can someone reside in a culture that has a different language and has different visual forms and different vernacular than one that individual is used to from their own background, and can they merge together to create something new, and can it function as graphic design in society, more importantly. So obviously these are more kind of cultural organizations that are most of my clients, and examples that you're seeing here. Just on my recent work, kind of delving a little bit more into both what work for me is as an artist, beyond kind of commercial projects that I receive, or clientele work. I'm looking into my own perspective, per se, designer as an author. That poetry that I mentioned earlier on here is being translated into a poster that the title of the poster is "Wherever I am, the sky shall always be mine," which is a quote from a Persian poet, Sohrab Sepehri, that I'm a big fan of. And being in Oklahoma, where I'm at right now, clouds are a constant present. They're beautiful. They move all the time. They change all the time. You have vast skies in Oklahoma. So that poem came to mind as I was making this work. And interestingly enough, I typed that poem in it must have been Adobe Illustrator, and it broke it up like this because the typeface that I had chosen, the Nastaliq typeface, it was not fully kind of functioning, and those rectangles kind of appeared as spaces, and to me actually was perfect, which was allowing kind of the breaking the fluid form of the poetry through the Latin language, or the Latin framework of the software allowed that. So I jumped on that and I just threw that poetry in there the way it was. So lately I've been interested in the presence of programming in design and coding in design. In this case, with the assistance of an intern from CalArts, I put together this exhibition, this part of the exhibition, and this is using processing language to stream data coming from the weather information from Tehran in Iran, the weather information from Los Angeles, California, and also the weather information from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I live, and bringing those together to this one space, kind of a metaphor for what happens kind of in my heart, what happens in my mind when throughout the day, I'm constantly thinking about these three areas: my connections to Tehran and Iran, my connections to Los Angeles and California, and here where I'm residing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the weather information comes through and it changes the typographic forms, and the background information you see here, I think that's just talking about the barometric pressure of the moisture and the humidity. And as the weather changes, all that information and all those forms change, and they communicate the new. I should say it's not like up to the second, but I think it's accurate up to the minute, which was still the first time for me to kind of this understanding of real live connections to the real areas of my life that I live in, bringing them both together in the language of typography and graphic design. So it was quite a learning curve, but I'm happy with some of the results. Here's some of the maps that I implemented in that exhibition. These are maps of, the left is a map of Tulsa, and the two right ones are maps that I researched and found about the Iran-Iraq war. So those are all kind of present, kind of overlapping the Tehran, Los Angeles, and Tulsa mapping. So that's some of my latest work. And I bring all this work to my classrooms. So this is an example of a student project. This is the word human in English, which happens to have 5 letters in the Persian equivalent of it, the word insan. And each student was given one of the letters from the Latin alphabet and one of the letters from the Persian alphabet. And they were to use 3D modeling to bring those forms together, first and foremost, just to create a unique presence of these forms coming together. So as allowing an artist and a designer to just explore the dimensionality of it. And then we took that to be printed in 3D printing for them to explore that territory, and then bringing all the 5 forms together to put together a word that's from right to left that could be read as insan, and from left to right is read as a human. And this is a kind of close-up of some of the formal interactions of the two. That's the H and the character N, Nun in the Persian alphabet. So as a designer, we can't help kind of thinking, what more can we do, because of the power that each designer has, and also being surrounded by a world that is going to constant change and constant challenges. I constantly ask myself, what more can I do that's beyond my teaching and beyond my clients, and that is sometimes referred to as design activism, and that's really important to me. The one project that I want to show, kind of its roots goes back to 9/11, when a lot of people kind of consider that's when the world changed, and the unfortunate flows of military kind of expansion from America to the rest of the world that was as a response to that. And to me, being in America was a kind of a deja vu, because I came here to be safe from war and to be away from that violence. And here, I'm now a citizen of a country that's sending their military across the world. And I couldn't help but seeing this image again, of the scene of war and battle coming to haunt me somewhat. So it was important for me to say something and do something about this. The project 20 by 20 poster for peace was a result of that. Talking to my colleague Zara Pasha in Iran, we were thinking, what can we do in Iran to kind of communicate that Iranians want peace? And being labeled as part of a, back then, President Bush labeled this axis of evil, and Iran was part of that. And that term by itself was funny but scary at the same time. And we wanted to say something about that. We proposed the idea of putting peace posters together, showing Iranian peace posters and American peace posters. We weren't sure even if institutions in Iran or in the US will even be okay with that, or even designers themselves will be okay to just give us posters that they're designing from scratch, with the busy schedulings and kind of having their freelance projects full. So we took this risk and we went for it. And surprisingly, we got more than the response that we wanted. The posters were gathered, 20 posters from Iran, 20 posters from the US. They were shown in exhibition in Iran and in the US at the same time, and the September 21st, which is the United Nations Day for Peace. These are some of the banners and examples of the places that the posters have been shown together since then. This is the first gallery in the United States in Oklahoma State University, where I teach. That's where the posters were shown. At the same time, those posters were shown in Iran. And that was the first instance of the 20 by 20 posters for peace. And I thought that that project was a success, and we were happy and to leave it at that. But there were more demands and more interest on the posters being shown in other places in the world. And the first one started in Mexico, which one of my colleagues called from Mexico and said, "Are you interested in bringing the posters to Mexico?" And I, of course, the subject was something that's close to my heart and I'm passionate about talking about peace. So of course I said yes. So we went to Mexico with Carlos Gonzalez being the contact person in Mexico. He's a professor at Cortara University there. And we showed all our posters in this amazing monastery, but we added 20 posters from Mexican designers, and kind of continuing the theme for 20 by 20, which was incidentally, interestingly, kind of working for this process. So here you see students coming and looking at the posters at the monastery, and kind of me having a little kind of tour about them. Following year, we were invited to show the posters in China and add 20 Chinese designers to our collection. On the right side was this interesting moment that I got up in the morning to take some photographs from the exhibition, and they were practicing Tai Chi in that space. And this is a group that would always come to practice on that space every week, not thinking about what posters are around them. They were just going about their business. But for me, it was just so amazing to kind of see this kind of peaceful practice, ancient practice of Tai Chi happening surrounded by our posters for peace. And the following year, 2020, unfortunately, was COVID, so we only had the exhibition online. 2021, we were invited to show our posters in Denmark and add Danish posters. So this is city of Hoger. This is an amazing warehouse that they actually cleaned up just to be able to host these posters. I think now it's called the I think the Sewing Factory. I think that's the name of the space now. And Rika Hansen was kind enough to become the coordinator of that exhibition in Denmark. And in the bottom right, you see we had visitors from the Danish kind of government to kind of celebrate this with us, and that was kind of quite impressive to have their presence there, and all the students who participated there. So kind of continuing that perspective on what you can do. This is both for me and for the viewers. I'm moving towards adding another layer on that path of communicating the power of graphic design through posters, and looking around, whether it's kind of what was happening in Iran about a year ago. Actually, the anniversary of that is coming up, and the right for women asking for their right for freedom and freedom of expression, and what was happening, and it's still happening in the U.S. Kind of unfortunate acts of racism that we see everywhere, and we have, of course, homelessness across U.S. and the world. That's something we all know. Hunger is something continuous. So these are all causes that I think graphic design can very kind of bluntly but powerfully engage and communicate to average audiences on the importance of these and how they can act, and kind of bringing them to the conversation. So I'm moving towards creating another series that we parallel to the Posters for Peace, which is Posters for Peace and Justice, because some of these aspects that we just saw, they're not necessarily about peace, but definitely about justice, whether it's food justice or racial justice. I think this is a voice that graphic design can have a huge part in, and I'm kind of excited to embark on this path as we move forward, and see how that comes across. And on that project for India 2024, with the assistance of Sadea and Archana, we're hoping to have a Posters for Peace exhibition starting in 2024 that will bring all the posters of peace from the 20 by 20 collection, and have it engage the Indian continent, which is, of course, a world on its own. And we're so excited to start this, and I'm sure we'll talk about this after my presentation here. And I think that's it. That's a kind of little brief overview of bits and pieces of my path in graphic design and where I'm at. So yeah, I'll stop my share here so we can have the actual CHARCHA happening.
Well, thank you so much, Pouya. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm just going to, so both of us can see each other now. Yeah, I mean, we had Design CHARCHA scheduled in August, and we are doing this recording so people can actually see and hear you as well. So when you said you reached out to me a year ago for collaboration, what was the reason that you chose India? Like, why India?
India, I mean, culturally is something that's been kind of close and dear to my heart. I've been to India at least, I think, well, 3 times, and every time different parts of India. So just the vastness of the land and the diversity of the cultures or the subcultures that reside in India, I think, is something that it kind of is a metaphor for humanity. If sometimes I joke, if an alien comes to planet Earth and they want to they only have a day or two to spend to get a little sampling of what humanity is about, I think I would point them to just go take a drive in India, because of whether it's spirituality or it's art or it's technology. I think the diversity and the history of India, I think, is unlike anywhere else. As a graphic designer, being in India, looking at the scripts that exist, and the vernacular, the visual forms that are used across, that by itself, I think, is enough for anyone who's interested in arts to do projects that are related to India. But I think as a graphic designer who, in this specific case, talking about peace, I know the contrasts that exist in India, unfortunately, like any place on planet Earth, at times those contrasts cause people to kind of think about, all right, this person is different than me, so I don't like them, and we should correct each other, and what's right and what's wrong, and that unfortunately causes acts of violence. So I know that exists across the vastness of India. So to bring this conversation from the perspective of graphics, is how and what can peace be like in any framework. It could be a framework of a family, and how can my family explore more practices that would bring peace to us, or it could be something as vast as how could the continent or the world be at peace. And the point of the 20 by 20 posters for peace, which I want to kind of continue in this posters for peace and justice, was that the conversation is the most important thing. It's not whether my perspective of peace is right or wrong. Is to have the conversation about peace, to allow peace to be something that is real in the vocabulary of humanity in year 2023. Well, we have so many other things that seem more urgent, whether it's from AI or kind of social media presence, or kind of careers, or kind of competitions with our within companies or within industries. I think sometimes those kind of override the humanity that we have. So conversations about peace, I think that would be the most important thing that can happen. And I know in India, it would be probably the most beautiful way it can happen.
I mean,
sorry for the long answer.
no, that was great. That was great. It's as you were talking about India, and what an honor, the way that you put together, the way you phrased about the talking about the Indian context and what India is all about, and even like talking about an alien, if they want to come and where would they want to go and explore. It's such an honor. I mean, there are several Indian Americans here living in the United States. And then also, so this collaboration is between Indian designers living here, or the Indian diaspora, and then also Indian designers back home. So we are going to be sending an invite to some of the designers that we are aware of, that we know are pretty active in the professional field, who might be interested in collaborating and then putting forth and designing the poster for peace. But that if any other designers are interested and perhaps we don't know them, they are also welcome to kind of send a note to us, and so then we can send a formal invite to them. So we are looking for at least about 20 to 30 designers, or if we get more, then even that's even wonderful and awesome. So really excited for this collaboration, Pouya. And then whatever you have said is super exciting, and all of the collaborations that you have had globally. And I hope that our collaboration with Sadea is going to be successful. And as we write the call or call for invite, I'll share more information with everybody. And of course, the Sadea board, my colleagues Shantanu, Garima, and Amrita are not here today, but then they were there last in August 18th when we actually presented and went live. So looking forward for their input as well. And any other last minute thoughts that you have, Pouya, that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's so great to have Sadea, because this is something that I've pretty much done most of the time built by myself, and only me and the other person that's usually in a different country. So to have a whole team, people who come from diverse backgrounds, but they're experienced about the Indian continent one way or another, I think would be amazing. And so I definitely appreciate that. And I know we've talked about possibly having a call for students as well. To me, the engagement of the younger generation is very important. Whether if they come to an exhibition and just have a chance to kind of see design forms from across the world in one place and see the power that graphic design has, but possibly having workshops on the ground when this happens. With the students in the localities to participate in the acts of making and talking about peace, and hopefully if we can put together a framework to actually have a call for students to also participate in the Poster for Peace. So these are all things that I know we're all working on to hopefully we can put it together, but definitely somehow a smaller or larger student engagement is something that's important to me, and I think we all look forward to see what we can do on that path.
I mean, really talking about the power of design, right? We are so used to thinking about design in a more of a applied, very commercial, like that's where we are kind of trained. But then really looking at design as in a very holistic understanding of design, like what can design do to change people's lives? So design activism is perhaps like the very, very important, crucial, critical, right, at this time of like what we are undergoing right now, whether it's in the United States or globally, because that's where I connect with you, Pouya, in terms of like the power of design. So really super excited, and I hope we can also reach out to students so we could put a juried call in India and also here. There are several students from India who are doing perhaps undergrad or grad school, and then perhaps they can participate as well. And I'm sure each one of them, like how you said, have their own take on peace with the cultural context, whether it's in terms of spirituality or in terms of politics or in terms of religion or whatever that is. I think everybody has their own understanding of peace. And I think this is the way to explore as designers and also showcase what we have or our own thoughts through the format of poster design, I mean. So thank you so much, Pouya, for joining us. And we are going to release this video pretty soon. And then as we send the invite, we are going to share the link to people. And I also took pictures as you were presenting. So hopefully we can put that on Sadea's website and then also Sadea's social media platforms.
Yeah, I something just kind of keeps in mind. I'm going to add that, and then we can wrap it. That I got a email from an organization in Ukraine a few months ago, saying that if we're willing to have an exhibition there, and of course I was first I had not even considered that, because obviously like it's the dangerous zone of kind of being present in there. And also so many people have made posters for Peace for Ukraine, which is great. And I think there's can't be enough of that. But for them to have heard about us and the project and to kind of reach out to me was an honor in some ways, you know. And unfortunately, the group that contacted me, I think they're going through some leadership changes and also kind of just considering how would this even take place? You know, would it be a space? Would it be in a digital kind of realm, or would it be on the ground? But just the fact that we've made enough of an impact that a land that is in war, they know about the power of peace maybe more than anybody else. And for them to kind of choose the presence of the language of graphics to be part of how they're dealing with this circumstances was quite amazing. So that tells me we're on the right track. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is fabulous. And I think much needed as of today. So I'm glad, I hope the collaboration with Ukraine will work. And then the power of design again, spreading. We are South Asian Design Educators Alliance. So there are several other countries besides India. And I hope that you will get to connect with other countries, the South Asian countries as well. We had Nipuni joining from she's a Sri Lankan designer for the presentation last time. Hopefully she's going to take it to her group and you can collaborate with them. And through Sadea, we can support the Sri Lankan designers as well. We have a designer from Bangladesh who couldn't join, but then perhaps he can also, like his name is Mohammed and he teaches in Cincinnati. And hopefully we can kind of have a collaboration in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, many more countries, South Asian countries, Nepal. So hopefully we just hope that all these collaborations will happen, and much success to you. And we look forward for this collaboration with India. So thank you so much, Pouya.
And great. See you soon.
See you soon. Take care.
All right.